participants, and all the IIMK fraternity present here. On behalf of the Indian Institute of Management Kozhikode, I extend a very warm welcome to each one of you to the 6th International Conclave on Globalizing Indian Thought. We are delighted to have you with us this evening as we continue to carry forward the GIT legacy. May I now request the dignitaries to kindly come forward and take their seats on the dais. I now request our guests of honor, Professor Anil Sahasrabudhe and Mr. Vikas Swarup, along with our director, Professor Debashish Chatterjee, to kindly proceed to light the ceremonial lamp and inaugurate the 6th International Conclave on Globalizing Indian Thought. May I request everyone to kindly stand up for the invocation.
Maitreem bhajata akhila hrijetri. Maitreem bhajata akhila hrijetri. Atmavadeva paranape pashyata. Atmavadeva paranape pashyata. Yuddham tyajata spardham tyajata. Yuddham tyajata spardham tyajata. Tyajata pareshva kramamakramanam. Tyajata pareshva kramamakramanam. Maitreem bhajata akhila hrijetri.
Thank you. May I invite our director, Professor Debashish Chatterjee, to present Ponada to our guests of honor. I now invite Professor Chatterjee to share the welcome address and formally announce the inaugural for this year's edition of the conclave.
This is such a beautiful evening with music, with lamplight, with the illumination of the mind and the heart. Esteemed guests, colleagues, students, members of the IIM Kozhikode community, and friends from the media, I extend to each one of you my heartfelt welcome to this evening of the 6th edition of the International Conclave on Globalizing Indian Thought. It is a matter of immense pride and deep satisfaction that this conclave, which began its journey here in IIM Kozhikode, traveled first to Mysuru, then across the sea to London in the United Kingdom, and now returns to its home turf. Globalizing Indian thought is an idea that has grown into IMK's signature on the map of the academic world. It is my duty to welcome the chief guest and the guest of honor. So the chief guest this is God's own campus. The chief guest is God himself or herself. And the guests of honor have done us a great favor. I know these are not easy times to travel. We've had many cancellations because of travel challenges. We are deeply honored to welcome Professor Anil Sahasrabudhe, Chairman of the National Education Technology Forum, National Board of Accreditation, and the National Innovation Foundation. A visionary reformer, Professor Sahasrabudhe has reshaped India's technical education. His work embodies the spirit of GIT, transforming knowledge into wisdom and policy into purpose. We are equally privileged to host Ambassador Vikas Swarup, distinguished diplomat, author, and eloquent interpreter of India's global journey. From Washington to London, from Pretoria to Ottawa, his career mirrors India's growing influence. As MEA spokesperson, he redefined public diplomacy as a creator of Q&A, the novel behind Oscar-awarded film Slumdog Millionaire. Who hasn't heard of it? He reminded, yeah, please applaud fully. Don't have to be halfway. Yeah, thank you. He reminded the world that India's greatest wealth is the human spirit. We warmly welcome His Excellency, Madam Lalachiana Ekushe, High Commissioner of Seychelles. To India, Your Excellency, your presence here celebrates the values and mutual respect that defines India's global friendships. Sitting here is Padma Shri Kiran Vyas, who has defined Indian He runs a legacy, a heritage Ayurveda center in Europe, in the heart of Europe, in France. And one of the pioneers for 30 years back, when Ayurveda was not even thought of here in India, he made it popular in the Western world. And then we have Lalit Verma, a friend of mine from Puducherry, the ex-Tata Don, now doubling up as connoisseur of arts and lover of people in general. So you see his stuff in display outside you can look at his display of some of the beautiful portraits that he's brought for us here. The idea of globalizing Indian thought began in a campus 30 years ago with a book called Leading Consciously that was published in the US in multiple international languages. Since then, GIT has evolved into an idea and then into a movement, taking India's ancient wisdom on a world tour. From the misty hills of Kozhikode to the royal hill halls of Mysuru, high-tech spaces in Tokyo, high-touch countries in Africa and Latin America, academic seminars in Australia, and then the Grand Senate House of London, GIT has carried the fragrance of thought that is timeless, humane, and transformative. Across 6 vibrant editions, it has brought together thinkers, sportspersons, diplomats, innovators, and dreamers, all affirming and reaffirming one truth. India's wisdom has always been global at heart. This year, we turn ideas into action, crafting a vision for Viksit Bharat, strategies for inclusive growth, and collaborations that celebrate shared progress. The 3 themes of this conference, intertwined, are the 3 Ws: work, women, and worldview. First, work. Imagine this. A train pulls out of the New Delhi station, the horn blares, the chai is hot, and optimism is running just a little ahead of schedule. It rattles past wheat fields and mustard fields, flyovers, and high rises before quietly merging into the invisible tracks of fiber optic centers and offshore centers. Now you can see this transition. In India, work has always been like that train, noisy, determined, and somewhat unpredictable. For us, work has never been just a job. It's a journey of meaning. Our tradition ties labor to duty and community, not just productivity and payroll. As the world moves to agile, remote, platform-driven work, Indian thought reminds us to anchor performance in purpose. Karma becomes karma yoga. This is what Indira Nui thought as the head of PepsiCo. She is a graduate of the IIM system, product of Yale University as well as IIM Calcutta. Now think of her, and she famously wrote personal letters to the members of her promoted managers in Pepsi, honoring not just achievement, but the relationship that made it possible for them to do so because of their mother's contribution. That's Indian thought in action. Work as connection, not transaction. To globalize Indian thought on work is to shift what do we do to what do we become when we do something. It is to build organizations where effectiveness walks with ethics, and growth includes the growth of the self. In a world of spreadsheets and speed, India's message is simple yet profound. Make work worthy, global in scale, but rooted in meaning. Second, women. Globalizing Indian thought on women isn't about exporting a newly packaged empowerment kit. It's about sharing a real story with agency, with tension, and just the right amount of chaos. Take that woman who leads a diversity team in Bangalore, who has turned a global job into a global opportunity from her own home by hiring women from small towns with flexible working hours. That's not inclusion. That's imagination. That's reimagination of work with bangles on. The real question is how to fit, not how to fit women into old systems. That's not the real question. It is how to redesign the system so that it does not make noise when a woman sits at the table. Empowerment isn't about adding chairs, it's about rebuilding the room. When we ushered in more than 50% women in our flagship MBA in 2013, we were not shifting furniture. We were redesigning a new room, and now that room has become the new norm. 30% gender diversity in the IIM system. I hope Anil Sasubudji is listening. It has also been part of now an accreditation framework. Gender diversity, including other forms of diversity, is a requirement for you to be favorably accredited. Of course, India is its own paradox. We worship goddesses in temples, but still debate glass ceilings in office. When a woman graduate from our institution leads a team in London, or when an Indian startup competes in Berlin, they do not leave behind their heritage. They carry it as hidden asset. That heritage is not nostalgia. It is a diverse lens through which new solutions may emerge. Indian women have been managing these paradoxes for ages, and doing so with grace, humor, and occasional rolling of the eye. We must forgive them that. Let us ask, how can workplaces re-engineer themselves so women are not simply inserted into a model designed by alien people? This model itself evolves if it is given the right kind of traction, and globalizing Indian thought on women means elevating structure as well as spirit. It means that the workplace is designed for all, not retrofitted for one. In that design, India, and Kerala in particular, has something to say, and the world is listening. And by doing so, we build workspaces where every person, women and men, can lead from fullness, not from deficit. The third and the final thing, worldview. Now we come to our own mission. At IMK, our worldview is globalizing Indian thought. Globalization in theory sounds beautiful. It is supposed to mean connection, collaboration, and cross-cultural harmony. On my travels in business settings, boardrooms in Boston, startups in Bangalore, remote offices in Johannesburg, I have seen the same global model repeatedly. Everyone is in identical blazers, talking about thinking outside the box, using this exact same PowerPoint template. It is efficient, yes, it is efficient, but it's the efficiency of a washing machine. I heard that metaphor this morning from Kiranji. Efficiency of a washing machine, predictable, sanitizing, but highly hypnotic. Now imagine if in the Indian worldview, with its plural histories, its layered contradictions, and its ability to have three opinions in one sentence. If you don't trust me, you go and look at this guy in Chennai who actually is the doorman who puts your bag in the car with one hand. He opens the door of the car with the other hand. He carries your luggage. And the third invisible hand is pleading for a little tip. And India's syntax, very nuanced ways that our common people communicate. And language is very different here than the language of transaction, right? And so you have to make allowances for the doorman in that hotel in Chennai. Because let's face it, India has been dealing with complexity long before multitasking was a buzzword. We had 22 official languages, 6,000 dialects, and 1,000 ways of winning an election. Trust me. There are as many more ways perhaps than 1,000. A country where traffic, business, and ideology all function in the same street. Let me share a story. I once visited an Australian think tank, and I met a naval commander. I was expecting him to ask, how do we do business? How do you do business in India? I thought that was the relevant question. But he asked me, how do Indians think about business? No, I paused and I reflected. And he said, if the unit of currency of a nation was one human being, not a yen, not a dollar, not a rupee, India and China are already the richest. Now, then it used to be India and China, now it's India alone. We stand at the threshold where that human being, as the unit of currency of the nation, towers over every other nation. And how have we ignored this currency? At what cost? And so I paused and reflected and realized something extraordinary. The map had flipped on India's side. We weren't just adding to the global ideas anymore. The world was getting curious about our maps. I came back to my campus and altered what used to be called Harvard Steps and called it Arjuna Path. I renamed the hostels of students based on music ragas because, come on, you have to face the music, you don't perform in business. But nevertheless, music was a way of seeing the world as rhythms, not just linear models, right? And so, after all, if you look at the Indian reality, the diversity of expressions, you look at a startup in Mumbai, they are set out to build what they call a team of 100 thinkers. Their formula combined the Indian instinct for we with the global expectation of I am the leader. So the result is a workplace where everyone led in something, but no one forgot the whole picture. They built a company culture that was both individual and interdependent, like a good Indian family WhatsApp group, messy, opinionated, but somehow it works. And maybe that's the point. What is the point? Globalization is not about Indian thought alone. It isn't about putting India on the world map alone. It's about reminding the world that India is an unmapped potential waiting to be actualized by the rest of the world, including us. My biggest challenge was Indianizing Indian thought, convincing my own faculty and students that it matters before we attempted to globalize it. In conclusion, let us claim space for India in the global lexicon of ideas where work is meaningful, where women are significant, where worldview is plural. Let India thought travel, not as a relic of the past, but as an engine of the future. In closing, permit me to offer a challenge to each academic sitting here. Push your scholarship to ask questions that globalized Indian thought will raise going forward. To our industry leaders who are sitting here, let your strategy respect not only markets but meaning. To our students, large numbers sitting here, carry your Indian identity into the global amphitheater, not as a burden, but as a beacon. When we align work and worldview under the banner of Indian thought, we will not only engage the world, we will help define it when we succeed by 2047. That's our aspiration here. When work, women, and worldview align under a globalized Indian frame of thought, we will not merely adapt to the changing world, we will hopefully change the world. Jai Hind. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for taking us through the journey of GIT throughout the years into its present form as work, women, and worldview. I now request Professor Siddharth Padi, Chairperson Research, to kindly introduce the guest of honor, Professor Anil Sahasrabuddhe.
Good evening, everyone. It's a distinct honor to have our esteemed guest, Professor Anil D. Sahasrabuddhe, with us today. Professor Anil Sahasrabuddhe has done his Master of Engineering and PhD in Mechanical Engineering from Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore. After graduating from Karnataka University with a gold medal, he has worked with Tata Consulting Engineers, Northeastern Regional Institute of Science and Technology, famously known as NERIST, Arunachal Pradesh, IIT.
No, I think that's enough. Huh? Yeah, I think it's okay. Sabhi ko namaskar. Very good evening to all of you. Very brilliant dais here. Guest of honor, Ambassador Dr. Vikas Swarup. Madam Swarup is in the front. And then Dr. Devashish Chatterjee, Director IIM Kozhikode. Madam Lalchina, Ambassador of Seychelles. There are Padma Shri awardees. We heard one of them, the beautiful flute program just a while ago. And then others who are going to be speaking later. That is Padma Shri awardees Pandit Ronu Majumdar, Dr. Kiran Vyas. I hope Dr. Anil Gupta also will make his way. I don't know what will happen, but he is also on the way. Dr. Lalit Verma and all the faculty and students of this particular institute and those who are here in IIM Kozhikode for participating in the workshop, and they are all very thrilled by being part of this particular IIM. There are multiple reasons. An institute which came up only about 3 decades ago, which is a Generation 1 institute, of course, but after ABC, it has come the 5th institute. But within a short time, in the last about 15 years, thanks to the director and the entire team, it has catapulted into number 3 position as far as national rankings are concerned. It also, in the QS and very other rankings also, it finds its place. But what is more important is, yesterday afternoon, when I visited director's office and he was taking me around, whether it is the Gurukul classroom, whether it is the library, whether it is an exhibit of what industry does in different formats, the entire ambience, the green infra which exists here itself is so inspiring and motivating that what is globalizing Indian thought, and we have said in the title here that lessons from invisible India. I hope it is no more invisible India, it is visible India. I think we will have to tweak the title in a year or two to come. We're starting from announcement of International Yoga Day on the 21st of June, 2015. As soon as this government came to power, Narendra Modi insisted on United Nations to announce this. We have already come in. And look at different perspectives, the whole world, although we may be at disadvantage in the trade tariff war or somewhere here and there, but nevertheless, wherever there are some kind of conflicts in this world, it is India which is looked at. for the solution, whether it is in the Gulf, whether it is Russia-Ukraine war, or you go anywhere, all the conflicts, India is seen as a possible solution provider. And that is where globalizing Indian thought comes into picture. And many a times, although the world is realizing the India's century has come, there are some statistics which I will also be telling in the course of this time in terms of things which are moving. Just three statistics, three figures which I would like to mention. Number one, as far as the economy is concerned, we were all told that in the year 1 CE, we were around 32% of the global GDP. We slipped, and then there are a variety of reasons. We will not get into those. But at the time of independence, we were hardly having 2-3% of GDP of the globe. Today, in terms of what we call pay parity terms, we are around 17-18%, but we are already the fourth largest economy, moving up from 11th largest economy in just about a matter of 10 years. As far as innovation is concerned, and this institute has a lot of innovative things which I saw, whether it is musical garden, whether it is water resource harvesting. So in terms of all of this, we see where we stand at innovation. 10 years back, our ranking in Global Innovation Index was 81st position. And today we have already reached 38th position. There is no year when we slipped. Each year we jumped maybe sometimes 4 or 5 places, but the curve is becoming steeper. So we have jumped only one place in the last 2 years. So there is a challenge before us to move ahead in the next maybe 5-6 years so that we are in the top 10 in the Global Innovation Index. And large number of things which we are doing are certainly not only useful for India, but also for the entire Global South, and maybe even some of the developed countries. Take, for example, Atal Innovation Mission and the tinkering labs, which have been set up in about 10,000 schools. There have been a lot of innovations and patents coming from school children. As far as technical education is concerned, from AICTE, we started what is known as Smart India Hackathon. Hackathons as a problem-solving entity did exist in US, but on a scale which is unfathomed is where what India has created, what is known as a universal as well as the innovation model which is envied by everyone. The problems of the common people, the government departments, the startups, small and medium scale industries, given a challenge to undergrad students who on one side industry keeps saying that graduates are not employable, but very same students, when given an opportunity, second year, third year students are solving problems which major industries or government departments like ISRO, DRDO, Railway Ministry are adopting and using them from out of the innovation done by class, which is just not even graduate. I think that is where our innovation potential exists. Today morning I was attending the class on how to publish papers in top tier journals by Shefali, and I was listening to one of the case studies which she mentioned there, that of the National Innovation Foundation. We are missing Dr. Anil Gupta. He may come, may not come, I don't know, but he was one of the persons who was instrumental along with Dr. Mashelkar for creating this. And these innovations, some time ago, we used to call as jugaad. People were somehow managing when there are difficulties, find temporary solutions. But today it is not the same. The same people who live in agriculture field, who are in the mechanics, in the auto garages, in the industry, hardly having any education, maybe even school dropouts from 4th standard, 6th standard, are capable of doing innovations which will solve their problems. And some of those are already converted into patents. Out of 1,500 filed patents, 750 are granted, and some of them have created great business. So as far as innovation is concerned, Probably innovation is in our DNA, but we had never made use of it. Probably the time has come that we must make use of this ability of ours as Indians to innovate in the difficult circumstances. So we have come to, as I said, 38th position. We will be certainly inching forward to the top 10 position in the next 5 years. The third matrix, which is also equally important, is in terms of creation of jobs. So we are a 1.4 billion population, and all said and done, on one side, industry may be saying that employability is poor because we are not teaching them practical skill sets. The institutions and universities are training students in only theoretical knowledge. But nevertheless, there is a change which has happened in terms of providing them internships from the industry. But more important, even if they are made employable, all variety of skill sets, be it working in teams, leadership, communication skills, all of this is imparted. Probably we don't have enough jobs for all of us. And therefore, rather than depending on jobs, creating jobs is important. And that is where skills of entrepreneurship, incubators in all the institutions and organizations, creating that support system was very significant and important. And in the last 10 years, another statistics which I would like to mention, just 10 years ago, we had only 400 registered startups. Today, the number is 1,57,000. It's a mind-boggling growth that has happened. Each one of them, even if they provide jobs to 10 to 20, I think that is where it is. And therefore, our educational institutions have to become entrepreneur creators rather than job seekers. This is another important area. Now, coming to globalizing Indian thought, I mentioned about yoga, but many times, although many foreign countries realize the potential of Bharat, that is India, our own students were never taught what is our capability and what was our rich heritage and past. And that is why many times our students question us, is this some kind of a fable or a mythology, or did we really achieve those kind of things? I think the putting of Arjuna as one of the statues is one of the finest things that we have done. We have one single-minded devotion that our students, if they do, they can achieve it. And that's what Arjuna had shown to us. Same is the case with the statue of Vivekananda, which I saw there. And he had mentioned that everyone is divine. Each one is born with some talent, but identifying that talent, nurturing that talent, and providing support for that talent is what our educational institutions need to do. And that was what was missing in all these years, 75 years, even after independence. Probably now we have taken roots through three things which happened in the year 2020. Number one, pandemic broke out, you are all aware, and therefore the challenges in terms of healthcare was realized, and how our ancient system of Ayurveda would come in handy was helpful in many respects, and that is one area which the world has to realize, and then we can take this globalizing thought elsewhere. The second thing which happened in the same year was the launch of the National Education Policy, NEP 2020, which has all the features for making this nation a great nation again. Whether it is multidisciplinary education, whether it is multiple entry exit, support for innovation, support for research, how our entire education has to be rooted in our Indian values. But even before NEP 2020 was announced by none other than Dr. Kasturi Rangan, late Kasturi Rangan, the former chairman of ISRO, we in the ministry had one-day session of about 100 people, even before the launch of what we say NEP, and slightly before the lockdown started under what we say COVID-19 crisis. And that was a very interesting meeting where there were more than 100 people invited. 50 of them came physically in Shastri Bhavan in Ministry of Education. Remaining 50 came online. because already some flights were getting cancelled. There was a fear of spread of the coronavirus, so 50 of them came online. And it was a whole day debate, and we realized how we need to bring in entire achievements that our glorious country, Bharat, had done to the curriculum on one side, and then establish what are known as Indian knowledge systems or Bharatiya Gnana Parampara centers in the educational institutions. All three happened in the year 2020. Now we are 5 years down the line, and I'm very happy that many people who were even afraid of speaking about some of our ancient wisdom, which is time immemorial. That's why it is called Sanatana. It is not dying. Some of that truth will remain. Some things will change. Modernity will come in. We certainly did not have AI, but human intelligence was at its zenith. Our rishis and munis, whether it is in terms of physics, by Kannada or chemistry or mathematics, we all are aware. It is not just the invention of zero. In fact, zero is credited many times to Bhaskara, but it was much, much before. If you go to the shlokas in Upanishads and Vedas, there is Shatam, Sahasram. How do you get Sahasra and Shatam unless you have 2 zeros or 3 zeros? That means actually zero was invented even much, much before. It was credited because he wrote about it. Otherwise, our entire wisdom was always meant for everyone else. And that is why one of the terms which we used in our Indian language is Vidya Dan. We never say Vidya as a commodity to be sold. It is to be given free. And at the end of the program, in the Taittiriya Upanishad, it is written that Guru will be given whatever a student is capable of giving. There is no fixed fee. Unlike in IIM, you will have 11 lakh, 12 lakh fee, whatever it is, and similar to that. But there, and secondly, please remember, in our modern education system, we have to pay the fee in advance, only then we get admission. To the extent that some child is given some liberal, attitude that, okay, right now you cannot pay, your parents have some difficulty, you can pay 2 months later. And in case he has not paid it, he stopped from writing the examination so that he will be forced to pay the fees. Whereas in our ancient Gurukula system, after the program is over, it was flexible that you can pay whatever you can afford and not what is forced by the teacher on the student. That is the Guru Dakshina. And then we had the 2 ancient universities, Takshila and Nalanda. The first universities of the world came here, and in that era, if there was any global ranking, like QS ranking and Times Higher Education ranking, there were 17 such universities in India, all residential, one entirely women university as well at that time. People talk about equality. So there was a university run by women in Gujarat, and there were 17 such universities, and this would have been the global number 1 rank, number 2 rank, all of them to India, because there were no universities elsewhere. And with that, we certainly have slipped, and we are resurrecting ourselves, and that is where our children first have to be given complete information about what we had indeed achieved with references. Today without giving reference, no one will believe you, and therefore authenticated information has to be given. So the IKS division, which was established in the Ministry of Education, we are creating a wiki where authentic Indian knowledge system information will be available for all to get in. And if you have some additional information which you can share with us, please do that. It will be verified, and only then it will be put onto the website. This task is given to IIT Kanpur, and they are developing a very beautiful website, which is called as Jnana Sarita. It is a river of ocean or jnana or knowledge. I think these are some of the things which we should be able to take it to the world, and if we are able to do and convince the world, in fact, entire conflict resolution in the world, which is full of strife, can be overcome. Only through 2 mantras, which we have been often talking about, even in G20 we used it. That is Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. The whole world is one family. I don't think any culture in the world, any civilization in the world ever talked about entire world as one family. Today, United Nations talks about global village and all of that. But this concept was there in our country, and we always welcomed everyone, whoever came from anywhere. And they imbibed our culture. We learned from them, they learned from us, and we were like a melting pot, true melting pot. The second one is Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam is extended to what we call as Sarve Janaha Sukhino Bhavantu. Let the whole world be happy. We never say I should be happy. We say whole world be happy. Entire our neighborhood, other nations. Although some nations in the neighborhood don't like it, that's a different matter. But we want them to be also happy. And if they trouble us, we will take care. That is a different matter. But otherwise, we have this philosophy of helping others. And this has been our spirit. Therefore, we never went on war to capture what we call as other territories. We are very happy with Ase to Himalaya, from ocean to Himalaya. That is our land. East, west, north, south boundaries. Culturally, we are one. Civilizationally, we are one. And we have been very happy with that. And unfortunately, historically, some things happen and then we got split, etc. That's a different matter. Otherwise, we are one entity in terms of our culture, our ethos, our different types of games. Although in some way, it looks like very diverse. There is certainly diversity in terms of languages. Devashish already mentioned about 22 official languages in 8th schedule and thousands of languages which are spoken. And our education should be imparted in all languages. Why are we constraining our children to be educating in only English, which came from UK? I'm sorry, madam, because this came from outside. And our children, we have about only 30% of the what we call GER ratio. And that is because many children in the rural areas, tribal areas, they are afraid whether they will go to college, whether they will be able to understand, because they have done their 10th grade, 12th grade in their own mother tongue. And suddenly in a college environment, everything is in English, they get zapped, shock. This is like Alvin Toffler's shock, this is a different type of a shock the children face. And therefore, how we can give even higher education in their own mother tongue. And that's why today technology supports, helps. We at AICT have created a very unique tool called Anuvadini. Probably no other tool in the world can do something which we have been able to create. That's very important. Anuvadini is not just translation tool, which Google also does, Microsoft does, and there are many of them who do. I mean, the accuracy of each one of them may be ranging from 70-80% to 90% because the context, it does translation word by word or sentence by sentence. But unless a correct dictionary used, depending on the what is the subject matter, if it is a legal one, then you have to use legal dictionary. If it is a science one, science dictionary, technology dictionary, then the accuracy will improve. And that is what we have attempted, and therefore our accuracy is better. More than that, this tool translates any content available in English in various printable software like InDesign or PDF files with a lot of formatting, tables, graphs, pictures, translated into all 22 languages and 55 foreign languages with exact formatting, with the same style of font, with the same color, and inside the content of the graphs and pictures also, whatever is there is translated. That means basically we dissect the content, identify the images, then translate individual one and re-stitch it back. And that is where our tool is going to be very, very valuable for learning in different Indian languages. I think these are some of the strengths which we are able to use for both innovation and research, whereby we will be able to show the world that we will be able to do anything, everything which is possible. In fact, the task given to us was done in 5 days. I would like to mention that, very interesting. We are a signatory to the Washington Accord, where all signatories are treated as equals as far as engineering education is concerned. If the program is accredited by National Board of Accreditation in India, it is treated as equivalent in the American or any other 27 signatory countries. But one of the participants mentioned about 5 days before the conference was to be held in India that you are IT superpower, but we do come for all these conferences every year. But many people do not understand what is spoken because the pronunciation, dictum, the style of language and the speed at which they speak is different from different countries, although they all speak English. So English spoken by French sometimes is not understood by British, British is not understood by maybe Japanese and so on. Can you at least convert that audio into text so that we will read and understand that? And the time was given 5 days. So we had a AI-based training module, trained all the 27 dictions which each country speaks, and we converted that tool and it was accepted. And they all appreciated what we did in 5 days' time. So this is the power of India. As far as innovations are concerned, I think I don't want to speak because the time given was limited time. But in terms of innovation, whether it is from National Innovation Foundation, from universities and colleges, we are creating new benchmarks. I'm sure if you continue this in one side, at the same time, bringing our ancient wisdom to the world at large, whether it is in terms of medicine. We have no Shushruta statue anywhere in India, but in Australian university, they have put up, in medical university. So we have great strengths and we must make use of it to make our students explore. Because today's young generation will not accept what you say. They need to be given exposure, and therefore internships in Indian knowledge system is important. This IIM has many elements where they can learn a lot of things from our ancient wisdom. And if you are able to attract some of the students, I'm sure they will do research in those areas, will bring back to fore what is the lost glory, and again bring Bharat back to where we were in 1 CE by 2047. And that is our Viksit Bharat. You know, Viksit Bharat is that dream, which it is not just of that of the Prime Minister, but the entire nation. We are all geared up. 22 years down the line, we will be there. Some of us may not be there, but at least younger generation will see the light of the day, and then we will be too happy there. Thank you very much. Namaskar. Jai Hind.
Thank you, sir. Many thanks for actually sowing the seed of transitioning from invisible India to visible India. I would now request Professor Debashish Chatterjee to present a memento to Professor Sahasrabuddhe. May I invite Professor Satish Krishnan, co-chair of GIT 2025, to introduce our guest of honor, Mr. Vikas Swarup.
Good evening, everyone. It is my privilege to introduce our guest of honor this evening, Mr. Vikas Swarup. Mr. Swarup is a distinguished diplomat, acclaimed author, and a luminous voice of contemporary India. A graduate of Allahabad University, he joined the Indian Foreign Service in 1986 and went on to represent India with distinction in key world capitals, Washington, London, as well as in Japan, where he actually served as Consul General in Osaka, Kobe. He later became India's High Commissioner to Canada and subsequently Secretary West in the Ministry of External Affairs, overseeing India's relations with Europe, Central Asia, and the United Nations system. At the ministry headquarters, he handled some of India's most significant portfolios, including Pakistan, Nepal, Bhutan, the United States, and the United Nations. And as the ministry's official spokesperson, he became the public face of Indian diplomacy, admired for his clarity, grace, and credibility. After an illustrious diplomatic career, Mr. Swarup hosted Diplomatic Dispatch on Sunset TV and later served as the inaugural global thought leader in residence at the University of Ilp in Canada. He is equally celebrated for his literary achievements. His debut novel Q&A became the inspiration for the Oscar-winning film Slumdog Millionaire, a story that carried India's pulse to the world. His later works such as Six Suspects, The Accidental Apprentice, and The Girl with Seven Lives have been translated into 47 languages, taking Indian storytelling to readers across continents. As our director, Professor Chatterjee, reminds us, leadership is the ability to convert vision to collective consciousness. Mr. Swaroop's career and creativity embody that ideal, blending the diplomat's precision with the novelist's imagination to make India's voice resonate globally. At a conclave themed Lessons for Invisible India, Viksit, Bharat, India at 2047, his life offers a living example of what it means to globalize Indian thought by engaging the world not just through policy, but through purpose, empathy, and story. It is a great honor to have Mr. Vikash Swaroop with us this evening. So please join me in welcoming Mr. Vikash Swaroop.
Professor Sahasrabudhe was able to stop his biography from being read, but being a diplomat, I couldn't do that. Professor Devashish Chatterjee, Professor Anil Sahasrabudhe, Her Excellency Laltiana Akushe, High Commissioner of Seychelles, distinguished faculty members, esteemed guests, scholars, and dear students, please wake up, those of you who are sleeping. It's not every day that a diplomat finds himself at a management institute. Because we diplomats are trained to manage protocol, not product strategy. We don't monitor spreadsheets, we monitor ceasefires. And our return on investment is not measured in profits, but in peace. So it is a singular privilege to be invited as the guest of honor at this flagship conclave on globalizing Indian thought. And I couldn't have asked for a better venue than IIM Kozhikode, an institution that stands today as a testament to what Indian excellence looks like, that has, over the past 50 years, not just imparted management education, but has been at the forefront of shaping India's thought leadership on the global stage. As you celebrate your Golden Jubilee, you're not just looking back at 5 decades of achievement, you are looking forward to defining what the next 50 years of Indian management thought will look like. And I have a feeling that it was in that very forward-looking spirit that Professor Chatterjee roped me in to speak on India and the world, reimagining India's soft power. But before we dive in, let me pause and reflect on why soft power matters so profoundly in our times. As Harvard Professor Joseph Nye taught us, soft power is the ability of a nation to influence others not by force or fear, but by the power of its example and the appeal of its ideas. In our hyper-connected, digitally driven world, it is no longer the nation with the bigger army, but the nation with the better story that wins the battle of perception. We have seen this, for example, in how South Korea has transformed its global image through K-pop, cinema, and design, projecting cultural confidence far beyond its borders. In the age of social media and 24/7 news cycles, a compelling narrative can be as powerful as a carrier battle group. And that is why India's soft power journey is so significant. For it shows how a civilization can engage with globalization without losing its soul. That word, reimagining, is also critical. Because India's soft power journey is not just about continuity, it's about transformation. It's about how we are reimagining the very idea of India, not as a relic of the past, but as a compass for the future, and how the world is beginning to see us through that new lens. And to understand how far this reimagining has come, we need to go back to the roots of India's soft power. For centuries, when the world thought of India, they thought essentially of 3 things: spirituality, spices, and silk. India was the land of Ram and Buddha, the birthplace of yoga, the home of Ayurveda. It was where seekers came looking for enlightenment, where the Beatles came looking for transcendence, and dreamers, artists, and thinkers came to awaken the imagination and touch the infinite. From Swami Vivekananda at the Parliament of World Religions in 1893 to Maharishi Mahesh Yogi in the 1960s, India's soft power was fundamentally mystical. But it was also intensely material. As William Dalrymple brilliantly demonstrates in his magisterial new book, The Golden Road, India was the mainstay of the ancient Silk Route, the economic and cultural superhighway that connected East and West for millennia. Indian spices, pepper, cardamom, cinnamon, turmeric were so valued that they drew traders from across the known world. It was the search for a sea route to India's spices that led Christopher Columbus to accidentally discover America. The East India Company didn't come to India for conquest initially. They came for commerce, for the spices and textiles that Europe craved. Yet, such was the power of India's allure that commerce soon gave way to colonization. Our soft power became our soft spot. Yet, even under conquest, India's true allure endured. Not the temptation of gold or territory, but the timeless pull of Satyam Shivam Sundaram, wisdom, beauty, and truth. So historically, India's soft power rested on this trinity: spiritual wisdom for the soul, spices for the senses, and silk splendor for the body. This was soft power in its most classical form: the ability to attract through culture, commerce, and civilization rather than through coercion or conquest. And the results were extraordinary. India's ideas, art, and philosophy traveled far beyond its borders, shaping cultures, faiths, and imaginations across Asia. Buddhism and Hinduism spread from India and transformed East, Southeast, and even parts of Central Asia. The spiritual and artistic imprints of India can be traced from the cave temples of Dunhuang in China to the monasteries of Japan and Korea, and from the great shrines of Angkor Wat, Borobudur, and Bagan to the cultural epics of Southeast Asia. The Ramayana and Mahabharata became the cultural bedrock of Southeast Asia, performed as Ramakian in Thailand, as Riemkar in Cambodia, and celebrated all the way from Myanmar to the Philippines. Yoga, Ayurveda, meditation, these were India's gifts to a materially prosperous but spiritually impoverished world. And let's not forget, as Professor Sahasrabuddhe just reminded us, India's profound intellectual contributions that shaped human civilization itself. India gave the world the concept of zero, that elegant mathematical revolution that made modern mathematics, science, and computing possible. Our ancient astronomers calculated the Earth's circumference with remarkable precision, understood planetary motions, and developed sophisticated astronomical systems that influenced Islamic and European science. From Aryabhatta to Brahmagupta, Indian mathematicians and astronomers were advancing human knowledge centuries before the European Renaissance. These ideas, like Buddhism and the epics, traveled both east and west along trade routes, fundamentally shaping human understanding of mathematics and the cosmos. But here's the thing about this version of India's soft power. It was rooted in reverence for the past. It drew strength from our ancient wisdom and timeless traditions. India was seen as a civilization to be studied, to be admired from a distance, perhaps visited on a yoga retreat, but not necessarily emulated in matters of governance, development, or technology. India was where people came to seek enlightenment, not entrepreneurship, to meditate, not to innovate. But today, something remarkable is happening. India's soft power is being reimagined and redefined. Yes, we still have our ancient wisdom and spiritual traditions, but increasingly, India's soft power rests on three very modern pillars: our democracy, our development model, and our digital prowess. So the three S's have been replaced by the three D's. Let's start with democracy, India's greatest soft power asset today, though it wasn't always seen that way. When India adopted democracy in 1947, many Western observers were skeptical. How could a poor, illiterate, divided nation of continental proportions make universal adult franchise work. Lord Mountbatten privately gave it just 25 years. The 1975 emergency seemed to confirm their worst fears. Yet, for 78 years, the world's largest democracy has not just survived and endured, it has thrived. Anchored by a visionary constitution that placed faith in we, the people, India has shown that democracy is not a gift of the West, but a choice of the Indian mind and spirit. And the Indian example matters because it proves that democracy and development can go hand in hand, even in a nation battling poverty and inequality. That freedom need not come at the cost of progress. By choosing democracy, India did more than shape its own destiny. It made liberal democracy credible for the modern world. Just think, if India had not chosen democracy in 1947, the global order itself today might have looked very different. The second pillar of India's reimagined soft power is our developmental story, and specifically our transformation from an aid recipient to a partner in global growth. When I joined the Indian Foreign Service in 1986, India was still seen by much of the world as a sleeping elephant, a nation rich in potential but restrained by its own regulations, and looking to the world for aid and solutions. Today, we are the ones offering solutions, and not just financial aid, but innovative approaches that other developing nations can adapt and adopt. Take our lines of credit. Now, India has extended 309 lines of credit worth over $32 billion, covering approximately 600 projects in 68 countries. These aren't just infrastructure projects. They are investments in trust, in partnership, and in the shared prosperity of the global South. India's LOCs built the first cement plant in Djibouti, the first milk processing plant in Mauritania, the first tractor assembly plant in Benin, the first sugar factory of Ghana. The Kosti Power Project in Sudan, built with Indian assistance, now provides 1/3 of that country's electricity. Now, China also does large infrastructure projects, but what distinguishes India's approach is our focus on capacity building. Through the ITEC, the Indian Technical and Economic Cooperation Program, which was launched way back in 1964, imagine. In 1964, when we ourselves were a struggling country economically, we launched our ITEC program. Now, through that program, till date, we have trained over 260,000 professionals from 160 partner countries in sectors ranging from rural development and IT to renewable energy and robotics. As someone remarked about China's extractive approach to Africa's minerals, China believes that Africa's best resource live below it, but India believes that they live upon it, because we invest in people. China invests in minerals. And it's this philosophy of empowering, not overpowering, that makes India the natural voice and leader of the global South. From leading the non-aligned movement in the 1950s to steering the global South dialogues today, India has consistently stood for equity, dignity, and solidarity among the nations of the developing world. India has also walked the talk. During India's G20 presidency in 2023, Prime Minister Modi made the global South central to global conversations. It was thanks to his efforts that the African Union was finally admitted as the 21st member of the G20. But perhaps the most dramatic reimagining of India's soft power is in technology. 20 years ago, when the world thought of India in technology, they thought of call centers and back office operations. We were the world's IT coolies, doing the grunt work while innovation happened elsewhere. Today, that narrative has been completely inverted. India is now pioneering some of the most innovative digital public infrastructure in the world and sharing it freely with others. Let me offer some numbers. Last month, that is October 2025, India's Unified Payments Interface, UPI, processed over 20.7 billion transactions worth rupees 27 lakh crores. That's 668 million payments every single day. India now accounts for 46% of all global payments all across the world, and UPI now processes more transactions than Visa does. Think about it. A payment system designed and deployed by India is handling more digital transactions than the world's most established payment network. No wonder 13 countries, from France to Qatar to Singapore, have now adopted UPI. Aadhaar provides digital identity to over 1.4 billion Indians, the world's largest biometric identification program. It was the first digital program platform anywhere to cross 1 billion subscribers in just 5.5 years. This trinity, Aadhaar for identity, UPI for payments, and data sharing frameworks, constitutes what we call the India stack. And here's what makes it revolutionary. Unlike proprietary Western technology designed to maximize profit, think Facebook, think WhatsApp, or Chinese surveillance systems designed for state control, India has pioneered a third way: public interest technology that empowers citizens while protecting their privacy. Countries across Africa, Southeast Asia, Latin America, and the Caribbean are now approaching India not for traditional aid, but for digital solutions. When we share the UPI source code or the CoWIN platform, we are not creating dependencies. We are building capacities and helping nations to stand on their own digital feet. In space, we have achieved similar breakthroughs. Chandrayaan-3 made India the first nation to land near the moon's south pole. Our Mars orbiter mission cost less than the special effects for the Hollywood film Gravity, and yet succeeded brilliantly. We are not just reaching for the stars, we are democratizing space. We launched the South Asia satellite for our neighbors, and through the Pan-African e-Network project, we have used space technology to deliver telemedicine, teleeducation, and connectivity across an entire continent, linking India's innovation with Africa's aspiration. And then there's our startup revolution. India now has the third largest startup ecosystem in the world, just behind the United States and China. We have over 124 unicorns with a combined valuation of $366 billion. But these aren't just copying Western models. They are solving uniquely Indian problems with Indian ingenuity. From Paytm revolutionizing digital payments to Ola transforming urban mobility. From PhysicsWala democratizing education to Zomato changing how we eat. From Blinkit and Zepto driving the quick commerce boom to Freshworks providing enterprise solutions globally, Indian startups are demonstrating that innovation can come from anywhere. What makes this particularly powerful as soft power is that these startups are now expanding globally. Urban Company, I was speaking to the owner of Urban Company, they are expanding to 14 countries. They are taking Indian solutions to international markets. They are showing the world that India isn't just a market to be served, but a source of innovation to learn from. Now, here's where Prime Minister Modi's leadership becomes truly significant, because he understood something profound. India's soft power doesn't require choosing between ancient wisdom and modern capabilities. We can and must embody both. By weaving together our civilizational heritage and technological innovation, he has crafted a powerful narrative that honors the past, showcases the present, and inspires confidence in the future. His call for the International Day of Yoga, and by the way, I was the Joint Secretary, United Nations Political, tasked with converting that call to the United Nations General Assembly into a resolution. And we did that brilliantly. We had 175 co-sponsors for the resolution declaring June 21 as the International Day of Yoga, the highest ever in the history of the United Nations. So this exemplifies the synthesis that Prime Minister Modi has brought about, an ancient practice reimagined for modern wellness. Similarly, Ayurveda has been repositioned as a scientifically validated healthcare system. Whether inaugurating a tech summit or leading a yoga day, Prime Minister Modi projects an India where satellites and sadhus can coexist naturally. A balance that also shapes our foreign policy shift from non-alignment to multi-alignment. In a world increasingly defined by binary choices, you're either with us or against us, India has charted a remarkable third path as a bridge between East and West, between North and South. India's USP is that it can talk to everyone and work with everyone. So India can be a member of the Quad with the US, Australia, and Japan, and also a member of the SCO and BRICS with China and Russia. Prime Minister Modi can visit Saudi Arabia, and he can also travel to Iran. He can hug President Putin in Moscow in July, and then he can hug President Zelensky in Kiev in August. India can build a partnership with Israel while also maintaining its principal position on Palestine. It's precisely because India is seen as a country that can work with all sides that we were able to produce a consensus G20 communique at the Delhi G20. As a diplomat for 35 years, I can tell you almost everybody had written off that summit because the Russia-Ukraine fissure was so deep that they said there is no way India can bridge the chasm between the West and the G7 and China and Russia, but we were able to actually pull a rabbit out of the hat and produce a consensus document. Now, this is soft power of the highest order. The ability to be a bridge builder, a consensus maker, and to speak with an independent voice in a divided world. And it flows from an idea deeply rooted in our civilization that Professor Sahasrabudhe already talked about, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. The world is one family. Now, India's reimagined soft power is also visible in our role as a first responder during crisis. Whether it was the Indian Ocean tsunami of 2005-2004, the earthquake in Nepal, the mudslides in Sri Lanka, or the floods in Mozambique, India has responded with speed and solidarity. When conflict erupted in Yemen, you all would remember that, we mounted Operation Rahat, evacuating not just 4,640 Indian nationals, but also 1,947 foreign nationals from 48 countries. When earthquakes struck Japan and Turkey, India's National Disaster Response Force was among the first to arrive there. Similarly, when COVID-19 struck, the world looked to India not just for help, but for leadership. Through Vaccine Maitri, we supplied over 235 million COVID-19 doses to 98 countries, including countries like UK, Canada, and Australia, reinforcing the image of India as the pharmacy of the world, which produces 60% of the world's vaccines and 20% of all generic medicines. But we also shared the CoWIN platform, the digital backbone that administered over 2.2 billion doses. And over 20 countries have now adopted CoWIN for their own vaccination programs. And let's not forget, India has remained the single largest contributor to UN peacekeeping operations, with over 290,000 Indian troops having served under the UN flag in more than 50 missions across 4 continents. Our soldiers are not just peacekeepers. They are teachers, doctors, and engineers, building roads, schools, and hope in some of the world's most fragile regions. But India's sense of responsibility now goes far beyond humanitarian assistance. It extends to climate action, where India has pledged to achieve net zero by 2070, and where India remains the only G20 country to meet its renewable energy targets ahead of the Paris climate change schedule. Through the International Solar Alliance, co-founded by India and France, 124 nations are now working together to make solar energy affordable, accessible, and sustainable. So from being a receiver of aid, India has become a provider of global public goods, from digital infrastructure and affordable vaccines to disaster relief and peacekeeping. That truly is the essence of India's reimagined soft power. Strength with compassion, technology with empathy, and leadership without arrogance. Even as we reimagine India's soft power, the traditional elements remain vital. Bollywood continues to entertain global audiences. I've seen this firsthand, from Turks singing Avara Hoon during my first posting in Ankara, to Ethiopian street children running after my car in Addis Ababa shouting Amitabh Bachchan, Shah Rukh Khan, and to Jai Ho becoming the anthem of the world after the release of Slumdog Millionaire. Indian cuisine continues to win hearts and stomachs across the globe. No wonder Indian restaurants are proliferating in foreign capitals faster than influencers can post #butterchicken on their Instagram page. There are over 14,000 Indian curry houses in Britain alone, employing more people, please remember this, employing more people than the British iron, steel, coal, and shipbuilding industries combined. Indian music, from Diljit Dosanj's Punjabi pop to Amjad Ali Khan's Saroj recitals, and classical dances from Kathakali to Bharatnatyam continue to captivate international audiences. Indian writers, from Vikram Seth to Banu Mushtaq, enrich world literature. But even these cultural exports are being reimagined. Bollywood isn't just song and dance anymore. It's storytelling with substance. Whether it's Dangal, breaking stereotypes about gender, Article 15 confronting caste discrimination, or RRR winning an Oscar for Indian resilience. Indian music too is going global. From Divine and Raja Kumari rapping in Hindi and Tamil at Coachella to A.R. Rahman mentoring AI-powered music collaborations. Our cuisine is evolving as well. with Michelin-starred chefs like Gagan Anand and Asma Khan turning humble Indian flavors into hot cuisine experiences. Even yoga and Ayurveda are now billion-dollar global wellness industries, with Indian entrepreneurs blending ancient wisdom with modern science. And one of those pioneers, Mr. Kiran Vyas, is here with us in this audience. So the reimagining doesn't mean abandoning tradition. It means making tradition relevant to contemporary contexts. And perhaps the finest ambassadors of this reimagined India are not just at home, but across the world in our 35 million strong diaspora, whose success and credibility have become powerful drivers of India's global image and influence. Look at the Fortune 500 companies with people of Indian origin as the CEOs. Sundar Pichai at Alphabet, Satya Nadella at Microsoft, Shantanu Narayan at Adobe, Arvind Krishna at IBM, Leena Nair at Chanel. They represent Indian technological and managerial prowess. Yet, many of them are also deeply connected to Indian culture, spirituality, and values. When Rishi Sunak served as UK Prime Minister, he lit diyas at 10 Downing Street for Diwali. When Kamala Harris became US Vice President, she spoke proudly of how her Indian heritage shaped her worldview. So the Indian diaspora doesn't choose between being globally successful and being culturally Indian. They are both seamlessly. This is what reimagined Indian soft power looks like: inclusive, confident, and proudly rooted in who we are. And it finds its fullest expression in Prime Minister Modi's call for Viksit Bharat 2047, an India that is technologically advanced yet inclusive, prosperous yet sustainable, and globally influential yet grounded in its values. This is the India whose reimagined soft power will continue to inspire, attract, and lead, not through coercion, but through the power of example and the depth of our synthesis. And if the road ahead till 2047 ever seems uncertain, I am reminded of the delightful line from the best exotic marigold hotel: everything will be all right in the end. If it's not all right, it's not yet the end. But as far as my speech is concerned, this is the end. Thank you. Valare Nanni.
Thank you, sir, for this remarkable take of a diplomat on globalizing Indian thoughts. May I now request Professor Chatterjee to present a memento to Mr. Swaroop. As we bring the inaugural ceremony to a close, may I request everyone to please rise for the national anthem.
जनगण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल बंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जलति तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मागे गाहे तव जय गाथा जनगण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे.
May I request everyone to remain at their seats while the dignitaries exit.